will not let this season take you from me. My child, hold that sentence before you decide what these last months have meant, before you count what has changed, before you look at what is missing and call the emptiness proof that something in you is disappearing. You have lost more strength than anyone around you realizes. I know. You are still answering when someone calls your name, still finishing what needs to be finished, still remembering what other people need. You still smile when the moment asks for one. You still say, "I'm okay," quickly enough that most people know not to ask again. From the outside, very little may look different. But I have seen the moments after everyone leaves. I have seen you sit longer than necessary before getting out of the car. I have seen you look at a message and put the phone face down because even a simple reply felt like one more thing being asked from a place already running low. I have seen mornings when you opened your eyes and stayed still for a few extra minutes, not because you needed more sleep, but because beginning another day felt heavier than you wanted to admit. My beloved, I know the difference between being tired and being worn thin, and I know where you are. You have been frightened by how little seems to be left some days. Things that once came easily now require thought. Patience costs more. Conversation costs more. Hope itself sometimes feels like something you have to reach for instead of something that rises naturally inside you. You have noticed that change. Then you quietly made a judgment about it. You thought perhaps this season was taking too much. Perhaps it was taking you. It is not. Come with me for a moment to a tree standing in the middle of winter. Do not picture it in spring. Do not give it blossoms yet. See it exactly as it is. Bare branches, cold bark, no shade beneath it, no fruit hanging where anyone can see it. Leaves that once made the whole tree look full are now scattered on the ground, and from a distance there is almost nothing about it that looks alive. If you knew nothing about seasons, you might call that tree finished. You might look at what it lost and assume loss was the whole story. That is what you have been doing to yourself. You have been looking at your bare branches, at the energy you used to have, the certainty you used to carry, the prayers that once came more easily, the version of you who could handle one more request without feeling something inside grow quiet. And because you cannot see those things the way you once could, you have begun to wonder whether something essential has died. But, my child, you are judging the tree by what winter has taken from its branches. I am looking somewhere else. I am looking beneath the ground. There are roots down there that winter has not touched. Roots no one applauds because no one can see them. Roots that do not look impressive. They produce no flowers for an audience. They make no announcement while they hold. They simply remain, alive beneath frozen ground. That is closer to what I see when I look at you. Not a person disappearing. Not a life becoming worthless because it cannot bloom right now. I see what is still rooted in me, beneath everything this season has stripped away. So do one small thing for me. Place both feet on the ground. Do not make it symbolic too quickly. Just feel what is beneath you. You are not holding the ground up. The ground is holding you. Stay there for a moment, my beloved. You have spent so much of this season trying to hold everything together that you have forgotten what it feels like to be held. You do not have to produce anything for me right now. You do not have to prove that your faith is strong. You do not have to force a leaf onto a branch just to convince yourself that life remains. Trust me here. The branches are not telling you the whole story. And this winter did not begin the day you finally noticed how empty they looked. I was watching long before that. I saw the first cold wind reach you. I saw the first thing you carried without telling anyone how heavy it was. And I remember the first small part of you that bent beneath a weight you were certain you could manage alone. That weight did not arrive all at once. It came quietly enough that you kept adjusting to it. One responsibility became two. One difficult week stretched into another. Someone needed you, so you made room. Something did not work out the way you hoped, so you swallowed the disappointment and kept moving. A prayer seemed to remain unanswered, but there were still things to do that morning, so you did them. Then another thing came, and another. None of them looked large enough by itself to explain why you feel the way you do now. That is part of what has confused you. You keep looking for one moment you can point to and say, "There. That is where I became this tired." For some of you, there is such a moment. A loss with a date attached to it. A conversation you still remember word for word. A season that divided life into before and after. But for others, my beloved, there was no single storm, only weather. 100 ordinary cold days arriving one after another. You kept adapting because that is what you had learned to do. You shortened your rest before you shortened your responsibilities. You gave away the quiet parts of your day because they seemed easier to sacrifice than the things other people were depending on you to finish. You became good at saying, "It's fine." Good at making one more thing fit. Good at carrying something heavy without changing the expression on your face. And because you could carry it yesterday, you assumed you should still be able to carry it today. I saw what that assumption cost you. I saw you sit in the car after arriving somewhere and wait before opening the door. Just a minute, you told yourself. Then another. Not because you did not care about the people waiting inside. Because for those few quiet minutes, nobody needed anything from you. I saw the messages you intended to answer later and then felt guilty for leaving unanswered. I saw you hear your phone ring and feel tired before you even knew who was calling. I heard you tell someone, "I'm just tired." My child, I knew you were describing something sleep could no longer fix. There is a tiredness that comes from missing rest, and there is another kind that comes from being asked to remain strong for too long. You have tried to solve the second kind as though it were the first. A little more sleep, a quieter afternoon, a day with fewer plans. Sometimes those things helped your body, but the heaviness returned, and you wondered why. Because what became tired in you was not only your body, it was the part of you that had been bracing for the next thing. The part that learned not to relax completely because something always seemed to follow. Do not turn that into an accusation against yourself. Please hear me there. You did not become weak overnight. You became worn by repetition. A tree does not enter winter because one cold wind touches one branch. The temperature falls little by little. The days shorten. The leaves loosen one at a time. What looked full begins to empty gradually enough that nobody stands beneath it counting every leaf that falls. But I counted. I saw the small disappointments you dismissed because other people had bigger problems. I saw the responsibilities you accepted because saying no felt harder than carrying them. I saw the grief you postponed, the conversations you replayed alone, the prayers you stopped finishing because you did not know what else to say. I saw all of it, my beloved. So stop asking yourself why you are not handling this better as though I have been standing here comparing you to someone who carried less. I have not. Believe me when I tell you that I know what this season has cost. You do not need a dramatic story to justify your exhaustion to me. You do not need one terrible storm before I allow you to admit that you are cold. A long winter can empty a tree one ordinary day at a time. And yet somewhere along the way you began doing something I never asked you to do. You stopped simply noticing how tired you were. You began using that tiredness as a measurement. You started counting how much patience remained, how much hope, how much faith, how much strength you could still give to the people around you. And slowly, almost without realizing it, you began confusing the amount you had left to give with the amount you were still worth. You have been measuring yourself by what is left. You may never have said it that plainly, but I have heard the questions underneath the way you move through your days. How much patience do I still have? How much longer can I keep doing this? How many more people can need something from me before I have nothing left? How much faith is still in me if I am this tired? You have been taking inventory. Quietly. Privately. And every time the number seemed lower than it used to be, you treated it as evidence that you were becoming less capable, less faithful, less useful, maybe even less worthy of being loved without having to earn it first. My child, I never taught you to count yourself that way. You learned it somewhere else. You learned it in places where value is connected to performance, where the person who produces more is praised more, where strength is admired because strength is convenient, where people notice what you can carry long before they notice what carrying it is doing to you. There are reasons the world measures things this way. A machine is judged by whether it still works. A battery is judged by how much charge remains. A field is judged by what it produces. But you are not a machine. You are not a resource I am trying to extract the most from before you run empty. And yet, my beloved, somewhere along this winter you began speaking to yourself as though you were. You wake up with less energy and call yourself lazy. You need quiet and call yourself distant. You cannot give someone the same patience you once gave them and immediately wonder what has gone wrong with you. You struggle to pray with the same words, the same confidence, the same attention, and you quietly ask whether your faith is disappearing too. Look at how quickly exhaustion becomes accusation in your own hands. You rarely allow yourself simply to be tired. You make tiredness mean something. That is the part I want to interrupt. Not later. Here. Your reduced capacity is not reduced worth. The amount you can carry today does not tell me how precious you are. I did not love you more when your branches were full. I do not love you less because winter has made them bare. Think about that tree again. Months ago, someone could have stood beneath it and admired everything visible. Leaves moving in the light, shade stretching across the ground. Branches full enough to make the whole tree appear generous. Now stand beneath the same tree. Almost everything that made it look abundant is gone. If its value were determined only by what it could display, winter would make it worthless every year. But no gardener who understands a tree thinks that way. Only someone who does not understand seasons would confuse barrenness with worthlessness. And, my child, you have been judging yourself as though this season is the only season you have ever had. You look at what you cannot do right now and forget everything that is still true about whose you are. You look at an empty branch and call the whole tree empty. Stop measuring for a moment. You have been running this private audit long enough. You do not need to calculate how much faith remains before coming closer to me. Come tired. You do not need to prove that you can still carry everyone. Put something down. You do not need to become useful before you become worthy of tenderness. My tenderness was never payment for your usefulness. Believe me about that, my beloved. Believe what I say about you more than what exhaustion says about you at 2 a.m. Exhaustion will show you an empty gauge and tell you that the gauge is your identity. It is not. Trust me enough to stop checking it for one moment. Your worth was settled long before this winter arrived. It will still be settled when this winter is gone. And there is something else you have not been able to see because you have spent so much time studying the branches. A tree in winter does not move all of its life into what can be seen. Some of its most important work has gone in the opposite direction, down, away from the eyes, into the dark soil beneath it. So before you decide that nothing is happening because nothing is blooming, my child, you need to know what winter cannot reach. Winter cannot reach everything. It can strip the branches. It can harden the ground. It can make a tree look so still that someone passing by might wonder whether anything inside it remembers what spring felt like. But beneath that silence, something remains beyond the reach of what is happening above. The roots. You cannot see them from where you stand. And that has been difficult for you, because lately you have wanted evidence. Something visible. Something you can point to and say, there, God is still working. There, I am getting better. There, this waiting is doing something. Instead, some days look almost exactly like the days before them. The same responsibilities are waiting when you wake up. The same unanswered questions follow you into the evening. The same ache can return after you thought you had finally moved beyond it, and you wonder whether anything is changing at all. My beloved, I understand why you ask. I am not disappointed by the question. You have been standing in front of bare branches for a long time. But bare branches are not the whole tree. There is life moving where your eyes cannot follow it. A tree planted near water does not survive because every season is gentle. It survives because its roots reach somewhere deeper than the weather. That is what I want you to understand about yourself. Your feelings are real, but they are not the deepest place in you. Your exhaustion is real. Your uncertainty is real. Even the days when prayer feels thin are real. But none of them reach deeper than where I have rooted you in me. My child, you have been checking for life in the wrong place. You keep looking for leaves. I am tending roots. You look for excitement and call it faith. I see you whisper my name when you have almost no words left. You look for certainty and call it trust. I see you get through another difficult day without knowing what I am doing and still turn toward me before you sleep. You look for a feeling of peace strong enough to remove every fear. I see something quieter. A root reaching toward water in the dark. Do not dismiss that because nobody can see it. Roots do not need an audience to remain alive. They do not come above the soil every morning to prove they are still there. They stay hidden and continue their work. So does much of what I am doing in you. There are things I am strengthening that would be damaged if I pulled them into the light before they were ready. There are places where your faith is becoming less dependent on how a day feels. There are places where you are learning that my presence does not disappear simply because you cannot sense it as easily as you once did. This is not spectacular work. It is deeper work. And deeper work is often quiet. So please, my beloved, do not dig up the roots just because you are anxious to see whether they are growing. Do not keep disturbing what I am tending by demanding visible proof every day. A gardener does not pull a seed from the soil every morning to check whether life has begun. He waters. He waits. He trusts what he knows about life beneath the ground. Stay with me like that. You do not have to understand every hidden thing I am doing. You do not have to feel progress tonight. Just remain. Let your roots stay near the water. Let me be enough for this day before you ask me to explain the whole season. Trust me, my child. Hidden does not mean abandoned. Quiet does not mean forgotten. And nothing blooming does not mean nothing living. There is more alive beneath this winter than you know. One day you may look back and recognize that some of the deepest strengthening happened during the season when you were most certain nothing was happening at all. But I am not asking you to see that day yet. I am asking you to stay here with me today, because I know the question already forming inside you. If the roots are alive, if I am still working, if this winter has not destroyed what matters most, then why has spring not come? My beloved, I have heard you ask that question more times than you realize, and I have never been afraid of it. You have wondered whether I am late. You may not have used those words when you prayed, but I have heard them underneath the questions. How much longer? When will something finally change? Why does everyone else seem to be moving while I am still here? You have tried to be patient. You have reminded yourself that I have a plan. You have repeated words about trusting my timing, even on days when those words felt much easier to say than to live. And still, there have been moments when you looked at this winter and thought, surely it should have ended by now. My child, I know. Waiting becomes heavier when you have already been tired for a long time. A person with plenty of strength can talk about patience differently from someone who has been standing in the cold wondering how much longer they can remain there. So I will not shame you for wanting spring. I will not ask you to pretend the cold does not hurt, and I will not tell you that longing for change means you have failed to trust me. You can want the season to change and still be faithful inside the season you have. But hear me carefully, my beloved. I am not late with your spring. You have been looking at the calendar. I have been looking at the roots. Those are not always measuring the same thing. A tree does not bloom because enough days have passed for it to become impatient. It does not force open a bud simply because it remembers what warmth felt like. There is an order to living things. Roots before fruit, strength before weight, hidden preparation before visible growth. And much of that order takes place where nobody watching the branches can see it. You have asked me for visible change. Sometimes I have answered by deepening something invisible first. You asked me to remove the pressure. I began teaching you that you do not have to carry every request that reaches you. You asked me to restore your peace. I began showing you how much of your peace had been tied to keeping everyone around you pleased. You asked me to make you strong again. I began loosening your dependence on the version of strength that never rested, never asked for help, and never admitted when something hurt. That did not always feel like an answer. Sometimes it felt like more losing. I know that. But, my beloved child, not every answer arrives looking like the thing you requested. Sometimes I answer the branch by tending the root, and root work is slow because it is meant to last. I could give you something that looks like relief for an afternoon. I could let you mistake a temporary feeling for a finished healing. But I love you too deeply to make appearance the goal. I am not preparing you to look alive. I am tending what is alive. There is a difference. So I will not give you a date simply to quiet your fear. I will not tell you that tomorrow everything changes if I have not promised you that. Some things may change sooner than you expect. Others may remain difficult longer than you want. Trust is not pretending otherwise. Trust is knowing that neither one changes who is standing with you. Stay close to me here, my child. Not only when the ground begins to warm. Here, while you still cannot see the next season. Believe that hidden work is still work. Believe that silence is not absence. Believe that I can be faithful without giving you a schedule. You do not need to force yourself to bloom to prove that I am with you. Let today be winter if today is winter. Let the branches rest. Let the roots receive what I am giving them beneath the surface. And when your mind runs ahead again, searching for the first sign that this is finally ending, come back to me. Trust me with one day before asking me to explain the next 100. There is something happening in this waiting that you have not fully recognized yet. Because while you have been watching for me to add something back to your life, I have also been allowing certain things to fall away. Some of them you still miss. Some of them you are still trying to hold. And, my beloved, I know how much it hurt when they first touched the ground. Some things hurt when they fell. I know you have tried to make peace with that. You have told yourself it was probably for the best. You have searched for meaning because meaning seemed easier to carry than grief. You have tried to be grateful for what remains while quietly missing what no longer does. But gratitude does not require you to pretend that losing something did not hurt. My child, I saw what it meant to you. I saw the relationship you thought would remain, the plan you had already begun living inside your mind, the opportunity you believed would finally open, the version of yourself you thought you would still be by now. Some losses came through decisions you did not make. Others came because you finally became too tired to keep maintaining something that had been costing you more than you admitted. And some things simply changed. No villain, no dramatic ending, just a door that stopped opening the way it once did. You are allowed to grieve that. Look again at the tree. When winter comes, it does not hold every leaf simply because each leaf once belonged there. The leaves were real. They mattered. They gave shade. They caught sunlight. They were part of the tree through an entire season. But there comes a point when keeping them attached would require something the tree is no longer meant to spend. So they loosen, one by one, and fall. The tree does not become less of a tree because the ground around it is covered with what it used to carry. My beloved, neither do you. You have been looking at certain things on the ground and assuming their absence means you failed to hold them tightly enough. Not everything that left your hands was lost because your grip was weak. And not everything that once belonged in your life is meant to remain there forever. Please do not turn that sentence into an explanation for every wound. I am not asking you to call every goodbye good. Some things hurt because they mattered. Some things should be mourned. I have never needed you to rename pain before bringing it to me. Bring it as pain. Bring me the disappointment without polishing it into a lesson first. Bring me the question that still has no satisfying answer. Bring me the thing you wish had stayed. I can hold your grief without rushing you through it. But there is something else I want you to notice. You keep reaching toward the ground for certain leaves. You pick them up in your thoughts. You replay what happened. You imagine the conversation differently. You revisit the door. You wonder whether one more effort, one different choice, one better version of you could have kept everything attached. And every time you do, you spend strength trying to restore a season that has already changed. My child, loosen your grip. Not because it never mattered, because it did. And because you do not have to prove that something mattered by carrying it forever. There are things I am no longer asking you to hold. Expectations that once controlled you. Responsibilities you accepted because you were afraid of disappointing people. Roles that taught you to believe being needed was the same as being loved. Old definitions of strength that required you to suffer quietly. Let them fall. You do not need to chase every leaf into the wind. Stay rooted instead. Stay close to me. Let me show you the difference between something you are called to carry and something you have simply become afraid to release. That difference may take time to learn. I am patient with you while you learn it. And when your hand closes again around what you thought you had surrendered, do not condemn yourself. Open it again. Give it back to me again. Trust me again. Release is sometimes a single moment. More often, my beloved, it is a quiet decision repeated until your heart realizes it no longer has to keep guarding what is gone. The tree does not spend winter trying to glue its leaves back onto its branches. It lets its strength travel deeper, toward what remains, toward what will carry life forward. And perhaps that is what frightens you now. Because if you finally stop reaching backward, You have to face a question you have avoided for a long time. Who will you be without everything this season has taken? You keep hoping I will answer by giving you the old version of yourself back. But, my child, I am not restoring you backward. I know why you want the old version of yourself back. You remember how easily that person moved through certain days. You remember having more energy without having to protect it so carefully. You remember making plans without first calculating how much they would cost you. You remember laughing without noticing afterward how long it had been since laughter came that naturally. There are parts of yourself you miss. And sometimes, my beloved, you have mistaken missing them for proof that healing means becoming them again. You have imagined restoration as a road leading backward. Back to the confidence you had before the disappointment. Back to the trust you carried before someone broke it. Back to the strength you had before you became tired. Back to the version of faith that seemed simpler before you had questions you could not answer. I understand why that version feels safe to remember. But, my child, I am not restoring you backward. A tree does not come out of winter by becoming the tree it was last spring. It carries the winter with it. Another ring has formed where nobody could see it. The branches may look familiar when leaves return, but something inside the tree has changed. It has lived through cold it had not known before. Its roots have learned where to reach when the surface gives it nothing. That is closer to the healing I am doing in you. I am not erasing your history. I am not asking you to become someone who never hurt. There may always be places in you that remember what happened. A conversation may still make you cautious. A certain date may still feel different from other days. A place, a song, a name, an empty chair may still carry weight. Healing does not require you to pretend those things mean nothing. It means they no longer have to mean everything. Listen carefully, my beloved child. You may be healing before you feel healed. You keep waiting for a morning when you wake up and immediately know that everything is different. Sometimes it happens that way. But much of the healing I do is quieter. It may begin when a thought that once followed you for hours passes through in minutes. When someone disappoints you, and you no longer immediately decide that you must have done something wrong. When you say no and do not spend the rest of the evening rehearsing an apology. When you rest without needing to earn it first. Small things. So small you may miss them if you are only looking for spring in full bloom. One morning, you may notice that you prayed without forcing yourself to. One afternoon, you may laugh and realize you did not feel guilty for being happy. You may hear a familiar song and discover that the memory attached to it no longer controls the entire room inside you. You may go through several hours without thinking about the thing that once occupied every quiet moment. None of those moments will announce themselves. There may be no date worth writing down, no dramatic line separating wounded from healed. My child, do not despise that kind of recovery because it arrives quietly. A bud does not make noise when it begins to open. The tree simply responds to life returning through it. Believe me in the quiet recovery. Believe me when the change is too small for anyone else to notice. Believe me when you still have difficult days after several good ones. One cold morning does not mean winter has started over. And one painful memory does not erase the healing already growing around it. You have been too quick to call yourself back at the beginning every time something hurts again. I do not. I see the rings. I see the roots. I see how differently you carry what once crushed you. Stay with me, my beloved. You do not need to hurry toward the person you think you are supposed to become. Let me grow something true instead of something fast. The person emerging from this season may carry softer boundaries, deeper compassion, less need to prove strength, more willingness to rest, a faith that is quieter than before, but rooted more deeply because it has learned to remain when feelings disappear. Do not call that a lesser version of you, and do not keep asking the person you are becoming to perform like the person you used to be. That old version survived by carrying a great deal, but there is something I want to teach you now. Healing will not require you to pick all of it back up. Some of the clearest evidence that you are becoming stronger will be your willingness to carry less. You are allowed to carry less. I know that sentence makes something in you uncomfortable. You have spent so long measuring a good day by how much you manage to hold together that putting something down can feel almost like failure. There is always one more thing that could be done. One more person you could answer. One more problem you could help solve. One more task you could finish before resting, and because you can see it, you assume you are responsible for it. My child, those are not the same thing. Not every need that reaches you is an assignment I have given you. Not every open space in someone else's life is yours to fill. Not every disappointment on another person's face means you made the wrong choice. You have been carrying things simply because you were afraid of what might happen if you stopped. So let me show you what trust may look like in this season. Sometimes it looks like letting the phone ring, not because you do not care, because you know you do not have to be available every moment to remain loving. Sometimes it looks like saying, "I can't today," without spending the next hour building a case for why you deserve to say it. Sometimes it looks like leaving one thing unfinished and going to bed. Sometimes it looks like asking for help before you have reached the point where asking is no longer optional. These things may not feel spiritual to you, but, my beloved, surrender is not always something that happens with your eyes closed and your hands raised. Sometimes surrender looks like refusing to carry what you have already placed in mine. You pray, "God, I give this to you." Then 10 minutes later you pick it back up in your thoughts. You rehearse the outcome. You prepare for every possibility. You imagine what you will say if things go wrong. You try to solve tomorrow before today is finished. I am not condemning you for that. I know why your hands keep closing. You learned to grip because gripping made you feel prepared, but preparation became control, and control became exhaustion. Open your hands again, my child. Not because you failed the first time, because trust is sometimes repeated. Give it to me again. The person you cannot fix, the decision you cannot make yet, the outcome you cannot control, the conversation you keep having in your head, the future you keep trying to visit before it arrives. Let me carry what only I can carry. And now remember what I asked you to do at the beginning. Feel the ground beneath your feet. You are still standing on it. You have walked through all these thoughts about winter, loss, waiting, and healing, and the ground has not once asked you to hold it in place. It simply held you, my beloved child. That is what you keep forgetting about me. You have been trying to hold your life together while I have been holding you. Trust me enough to lean some weight down. You do not need to prove your faith by carrying more. Sometimes faith is choosing the smaller yes. Sometimes faith is admitting, "I need rest." Sometimes faith is letting someone love you without immediately finding a way to repay them. Sometimes faith is saying, "I don't know," and allowing me to remain God inside the unanswered question. Carry less. Not carelessly, not selfishly, wisely. There will still be responsibilities that belong to you. There will still be people you love and things worth showing up for. I am not asking you to abandon your life. I am teaching you to stop confusing your life with everything everyone might possibly ask from you. Stay close to me, and I will help you learn the difference. You may not learn it perfectly at first. You may say yes too quickly again. You may notice halfway through a tired day that you have filled your hands with things I never asked you to pick up. Then come back. No shame. Open them again. Trust me again. Roots do not survive winter by carrying the whole forest. They receive what they need from the ground beneath them. And neither were you created to survive by standing alone. There are people I have placed near you whose care you have resisted because receiving feels more vulnerable than giving. But, my beloved, perhaps the next thing I want to teach you is not how to become better at carrying. Perhaps it is how to let yourself be carried, too. You have always found it easier to carry than to be carried. Giving feels familiar. Receiving does not. When someone needs you, you know what to do. You bring the meal. You answer the call. You remember the detail they mentioned weeks ago. You find the right words, or at least you stay until words are no longer necessary. But when someone tries to do the same for you, something changes. You say, "I'm okay." You tell them not to worry. You make the problem smaller while you are describing it so they will not feel responsible for helping you hold it. My beloved, why do you believe love is safe to give but dangerous to receive? You have become so accustomed to being useful that receiving care can make you feel exposed. If you are giving, you know your place. If someone is giving to you, you have to admit there is something you cannot carry alone, and that has frightened you more than you have realized. My child, needing someone does not make you a burden. There are people I have placed near you who are not asking you to perform before they stay. Let them stay. You do not have to give them the polished version. You do not have to explain everything. You do not even have to know exactly what you need before allowing someone to sit beside you. Sometimes care will look very ordinary. A message that says, "Thinking of you," a meal left at the door, someone taking one small responsibility from your hands, a conversation where you finally answer honestly when they ask how you are. Do not reject small forms of love because you were waiting for rescue to look dramatic. Sometimes, my care reaches you through another person's ordinary hands. Receive it. And if you are listening to me right now while thinking about someone else, someone whose branches have looked bare for a long time, hear me here too. You do not have to make their spring arrive. You cannot. Do not stand beside a tired person demanding signs of recovery because their pain makes you uncomfortable. Do not keep asking whether they are better when what they may need most is permission not to be better yet. Stay near. Listen. Bring what is useful without making them prove they need it. Send the message that does not require an answer. Pray for them without turning every conversation into a lesson. My beloved child, love does not always straighten the branch. Sometimes love simply refuses to leave the tree alone in winter. There is something about a forest that is easy to miss when you only look above the ground. From the surface, every tree appears to stand by itself. One trunk, one set of branches, one separate life reaching toward the sky. But beneath the soil is another story. Roots move through the same earth. They occupy darkness together. They hold soil that no single root could keep in place alone. What looks separate above can be deeply connected below. You have been judging your loneliness from what you can see above the ground. That is why some nights have convinced you that you are the only one carrying this kind of winter. You are not. There are people praying prayers that sound more like yours than you know. There are people learning how to rest after years of being needed. There are people discovering that faith can remain even when certainty becomes quiet. And there are people I am teaching how to stand near you without trying to repair you. Let them. You were never meant to prove your strength by needing no one. Even now, my child, you are being held in more ways than you can see. By prayers you did not hear, by kindness you almost dismissed, by people who stayed, and beneath all of those things, by me. I have never asked another person to become your foundation. That place is mine. But I have always been willing to send companionship into the winter, so receive love without immediately calculating how you will repay it. And when you encounter someone else's bare branches, do not demand fruit from them. Stay near without flinching. You may discover that presence is far more powerful than fixing. Now look again at the tree we have been standing beside since the beginning. The branches are still bare. I have not changed that picture just to make the ending easier. The ground may still be cold. Spring may still be beyond what you can see. But you know something now that you did not know when we first stood here. You know where to look. Not only at the branches, deeper, beneath the visible season, toward the roots. Come back there with me one more time, my beloved. There is one final thing I want you to remember when you leave this winter scene behind. The roots are still alive. That is what I want you to carry with you when you leave this moment. Not a date for spring. Not a promise that tomorrow will suddenly feel easier. Not an explanation for everything this winter has taken from you. Just this. The roots are still alive. When we first stood beside this tree, you were looking at the branches. You saw what was missing. The leaves that had fallen. The places that looked empty. The parts that no longer seemed capable of producing what they once produced so naturally. You looked at yourself the same way. At your tiredness. At your unanswered questions. At the strength you no longer have in the same measure. And you wondered whether this season had taken something from you that would never return. My child, it has taken things. I will not ask you to deny that now. There are losses you are still learning to name. There are expectations lying on the ground that you once believed would remain attached to your life. There are versions of yourself you may never become again in exactly the same way. But look deeper. The branches were never the whole story. Beneath the cold ground, life remained. Quiet, hidden, held. That is where I have been meeting you. Not only in the moments when you felt strong enough to pray. I was there when your prayer was only my name. Not only when you trusted without questions. I was there inside the questions too. Not only when you stood with confidence. My beloved, I was beneath you when standing itself felt difficult. You thought you were holding on to me. There were days when I was holding you. Remember that. Remember it the next time exhaustion tells you that you are failing. Remember it when an old pain returns and tries to convince you that nothing is healed. Remember it when someone else begins blooming and you look at your own bare branches and wonder why your season still looks different. Do not ask your tired heart to predict the ending. It cannot see far enough. Let me carry what comes next. You do not need to know when the ground will warm. You do not need to force open what is not ready to bloom. You do not need to manufacture hope just to prove that you still believe in me. Stay close to me here, my child. Today is enough, and if tomorrow still looks like winter, I will be there tomorrow. If strength returns slowly, I will be in the slowness. If you take 3 steps forward and one difficult day makes you feel as though you have gone backward, I will still know how far your roots have grown. I am not measuring you by leaves. I never was. Feel the ground beneath your feet one last time. Let your body remember what your mind keeps forgetting. You are being held. You do not hold the ground beneath you in place. You receive its support. My beloved child, receive mine the same way. You have carried enough as though everything depended on your grip. Open your hands. Let me have the future you cannot solve. Let me have the people you cannot rescue. Let me have what fell. Let me have what has not yet grown. Trust me with the empty branches. Trust me with the hidden roots. Trust me with the season whose ending you cannot see. This winter may have taken leaves from you. It may have taken plans. It may have taken certainty, energy, expectations, and pieces of the life you thought you would be living by now. But, my beloved, it did not take you from me. It could not. You were mine when the branches were full. You were mine when the first cold wind came. You were mine while the leaves fell one by one. You were mine when the ground became hard and you wondered why nothing seemed to be growing. And you are mine here, still. So do not call yourself finished because you are tired. Do not call yourself forgotten because the work is hidden. Do not call yourself lost because you cannot see the next season. Stay with me. Let winter be winter without turning it into a verdict over your life. Spring does not need your permission to come, and the roots do not need your eyes on them to remain alive. I know what I planted in you. I know what I have sustained beneath the surface. And I know exactly where you are, my child. This season may have changed you. It may have emptied your branches, but it has never moved you beyond my reach. You are still rooted. You are still held. You are still mine. And the roots are still alive in my hands. Amen.